help me welcome Mr. Simon from Otipro Limited. He's going to be taking us through succession planning. How do you make your business go from the first to the second to the third and even to the fourth generations bila kusimama? The last episode, believe over, it was such an amazing episode.
Very.
So we know even today
Yes.
we are going further and deeper.
Yes. We'll pick from there. From failure now to success.
To success.
Yes.
Going on directly, define
Yes.
for us success planning and also demystify the same.
Thank you, Eric, and to our listeners and viewers. I remember last time we discussed at length on why businesses are failing in Kenya.
Yeah.
But then we rightly put it that all is not lost. We are patriots and we still belong to this country, full of opportunities.
Yeah.
So it's equally a platform where we come in and explore on how we can reverse some of these losses and continue the good gains.
Yeah.
So if you look at succession planning, from a basic principle, you're looking into business continuity and equally now the leadership continuity. Okay? So every business or enterprise was founded at the vision level to continuously serve, even post the founders' time in this world. After eternity. But then you'd realize it's not really a culture or our way of doing things when it comes to planning, and not only planning in our own minds, but rather again putting it practically, that we still need this business to excel, and we still need a leadership that will hold this particular business all together. So if you are to really now figure out, even at this particular platform, the big discussion here will be after Eric, after Simon, who comes in and goes over and above Eric. After Simon, who comes in and picks to run even 4-speed, but then what is it that we are supposed to really look into? I think one thing we need to appreciate is that succession planning is not a myth. As people have had to bring it out to sort of like turn out to be, you are planning to leave this world. So there has been a lot of misconception, but we appreciate we Africans, and of course that is how we have been brought up. So some of these conversations keeps unfolding with time, and also considering now the risks which have been facing businesses in terms of moving forward post the founders. So really it's not a will. Succession plan is not a will, in that you come and express your own wishes going forward. Neither is it an event where you one day wake up and you put everything in place. And I have rightly put it, it does not mean when you plan, you are planning to live or meet your maker. You are planning to even put things straight, see to it that the business runs way past your timing. Yes, so it in a simple term, you're looking into that leadership in place, and that business having to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 generations. It's not only in Africa where we don't really embrace this, not at all. This is a global conversation. We have corporates, we have enterprises all the way West Europe, etc. But then how we come and plan on continuity, more so West and Africa, is an interesting conversation. But if you look at it now from the Asia continent, the onboarding of mind, if you look at it now from the family business, starts way ahead when these kids are brought up at a very tender age. in that they are placed in a culture of or rather a mindset of consistently interacting with the family as a unit, in terms of its own trade, in terms of what they own, and in terms of what they possess. So you would realize that void or gap at any given time is being filled and addressed when you continuously sync our own generations or offsprings to the way the business is run. Yes.
Wow. Succession planning is
Yes.
not a will.
No, it is not.
And you planning does not mean you want to leave.
No, 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 no. You're just trying to see to it that you hand over or you pass that mantle to a generation that will come in and see things better in a different perspective. And I know that's the same principle even for our cases. Our own fathers, yes, we will never go past them in terms of wisdom. But then there is a way that we do things that really was not there during their times. So it's the same case here, you know.
Wow.
Yes.
Is this common in Africa SMEs, and why?
It's not common. More often we are found to have plans in our minds. We plan literally everything end to end and stay with it. Okay? But you would appreciate a gap might arise at any given time within an enterprise or corporate. You could retire, you could somebody could resign. Again, life is eternal, we leave it to God. So anything might happen. So when you look at succession, you're coming in to really plan way ahead of time to fill that particular gap or void that might come in and distracts or rather exposes the business into either losses, a threat to it continuing to run and sustain itself. But then if you look at now the business or enterprise, you cannot define a business without people who are very critical in terms of as the main resource. But then if you look at it now from the perspective of Africa and touching to the SMEs, with all honesty and fairness and out of my experience, out of 100%, you will actually have about 3% planning for succession. And it does not happen easy. So this 3%, Eric, will plan for succession if you have right governance in place. And the governance is a conversation which is now driven by the board of advisors. So they will really demand that there has to be continuity post you as a founder, post you as a CEO. So who is it that is in place, that is ready at any given time to come in and take over from your own reins. So as much as it is there, I haven't really come across an experience or a situation where post my 15 years of experience, voluntarily we come out and say, this is how some I will really wish that this business or corporate runs in this direction. These are the laid up goals and objectives. And then in terms of leadership, I have strong feelings that ABCD people stands very high chances to come in and take over the business. But if you scan through to our topics of discussion today, towards now the tail end of our topic, I think it's good to bring it at this point. As much as is a plan which is systematic in identifying, developing, creating a pool of mindset that will come in and spearhead the business to the next level, it's actually a twofold. So this particular, from now the perspective of leadership, this leader at the point of now their identification is that they stand, they are actually very high performing, looking at their contributions and value to the organization. And in terms of their potential is actually again very high. But then how do you evaluate Eric's potential? We look at his own competences, that is the skill sets the knowledge and the experiences that they have with them. And then we marry the same in their own behaviors or personalities. So you'd realize is systematic in that we must see Eric as high performing. We must see Eric with a lot of potential, and he must come in and at least reflect this particular behavior at the personal level. But Eric in the organization now, because this is purely now at personal level, Eric in the organization presents himself in a perspective that he really owns to the company strategy and its roadmap, that is mission, vision, and the core values. He's a fit in that organization culture. He's really proven to be very creative and innovative. If you look at our stakeholders, the customers, suppliers, the banks, the other employees, they have really endorsed Eric in terms of his leadership and contributions made to the organization. And of course, if you look at Eric now in terms of this particular running, he's really passionate to see that business moves to the next level. So it's not a factor of coming in and physically assessing someone and saying they are fit for the purposes of this position in terms of leadership, looking at it from continuity. But rather, you really have to demonstrate that you carries an organization with you in terms of its short-term, mid-term, long-term, and you're even in a position now to bring them up from a perspective of now forecasting how the future looks like in terms of long term. But then that is now on leadership. When it comes now to the business, what we need to appreciate at any given time is, do we have a need for that succession plan? Is there a need? You'd realize the current leadership at hand, looking at it from the perspective of either a founder, a CEO, a board, or a GM, are quite very resourceful when it comes to succession planning. That's why I said it's a difficult conversation that takes place, because these are the people who needs to spearhead. So if Eric comes in and wants to really assess on a given organization in terms of now the succession planning, what will be of value here will be, in the first place, do we recognize that there is need for succession planning? Number two, do we appreciate the criticality of this particular process? Number three, how vulnerable are we as a business should a void or a gap occur? So at the need level, we need to put in place and appreciate that the current leadership at hand at one point will exit. Okay? Then what happens? Who comes in and takes over from where they have left? The criticality will be, how much does Prayer Cave TV stands to lose? Either in terms of commerce, commercials, looking at it now from the revenue perspective, customer, how many customers do you need to you stand to lose? The confidence of even investors, your partners and suppliers. And of course, and when you look at it now from the vulnerability perspective, immediately Eric is out. Who is it that among the team in the organization that is suitable or fit to come in and take over from Eric? So that's why I'd rightly put it, is a systematic approach. You cannot just wake up and you're like, this is my succession plan. Not really. It is a journey which takes not less than 3 years to put it in place, because identifying potential and identify high performance cannot happen within a, let's say somebody joined 3 months ago. So you cannot really come in and pick that as a justification to start now putting up a pool to mentor and put towards leadership. Wow. Yes.
3% you said are the SMEs in Africa that you've identified to have a succession plan.
Yes.
It means 97% of African businesses are running with the risk of lacking a successor.
Oh yes.
Wow.
Oh yes.
And you need at least 3 years.
You need 36 months.
36 months.
Yes.
For you to
at least to at least put a plan. That's a seriousness of this conversation. Eric.
Let us get to the risks.
You
First
know,
of all, we look at the risks.
yes.
Mhm.
You know, if you, I know you have been having these conversations with the likes of myself, even my colleague Felix, etc., etc. It will be interesting to note that from all these diversified environments and industries we have supported, every time we exited, replacement became a conversation. Yet, in succession planning, we are saying, even before I exit, when I express my expression of interest to exit, we already have someone who comes in and immediately takes over. So you see, if you today want to charge your phone, it will be a matter of connecting to the whole socket and the power, switching it on, and everything gets powered. That is how you look at succession. Instant. There is really not too much technicality in it. It is already a well thought and planned process. But then, as you have rightly put it, we need to appreciate that succession planning does not necessarily run or takes place within formal setups. We equally, this economy is supported by both the private and the public sector. The private sector, we know it has a very big chunk of informal sector, looking at agriculture, looking at processing, looking at art, you know, etc., etc. What will be of interest to really ask ourselves is on whether that Juakali person, wherever they are operating from, through their artisan works, etc., etc., do they really also require succession plan with them? And the truth is obvious, yes, there is need for succession planning because that founder or that person who is currently running the business is not permanent. Nobody is permanent in whatever we do. But then how much does they stand to lose, as I had rightly walked you through, in the event that Juakali does not run? So you would realize there is quite a number of dependency at social level, looking at employment, and of course the family units in terms of the providers having to work. So immediately that reliability is cut off. What are we saying when you look at it now from that family setup in terms of their needs, then coming all the way to the customer who was now relying on your quality and production, that supplier who was supplying to you goods and services, that finance institution which was lending to you. So you can look at how the impact will be in terms of magnitude. So it's not a conversation of only corporates or formal, but even those informal sectors. Everything everywhere needs to have continuity. So if you come back to the formal sector, the biggest players in succession planning are actually now the human resource practitioners. And it will happen actually in fivefold. At resourcing or recruiting level, at performance management stage, at rewarding stage, at employee development stage, and of course at talent development. So when you figure out succession planning from a manpower planning perspective, that is when we are introducing now the human resource. At resourcing level, long are the days, Eric, when you will sit before a panelist and all they're asking you is where you see yourself in the next 20 years. Those discussions are long gone. They died long ago. You know, we really need to go back and revert to the value that was coming out from an interview discussion or process. You settle and package an interview conversation from a competency-based perspective in terms of engagements. Remember, we had defined competency as that behavior, you know, as that skill set, as that knowledge and that experience. So why all this is happening, I will respond within this particular conversation. So we need really to run our interviews and discussions within a panelist to bring out Eric in terms of their potential, and to also have Eric represent themselves in terms of how they will perform when they join the business. So let us not really package too much weight and time of wanting to know where Eric will be in the next 20 years. Because when he joins, you become part of his career planning and how it will move in the next couple of years. So you still have an impact as far as his career planning is concerned. So it does not arise at that point. If you look at it now from total rewarding, you're basically coming in to compensate your workforce from the value that they are bringing into the organization. So that productivity that really reflects in an organization from either profitability at impact level, if your purpose is to have an impact, looking at you even either in terms of quality, again, if you look at it now from how much contributions they're also coming from these people over and above what has been set, then at that point we want to reward these people at this stage. Then of course I had mentioned about employee development, those continuous training, and these trainings are not those generic trainings. If Eric is an engineer, customized trainings that are fit to come in and upskill Eric in line with his own background. If Simon is a human resource practitioner, don't pull Simon towards agriculture, while you know this is not his own line. It can come in way left, but within his core, let's structure and package a training that fits his own current needs that have to push him upward. You look at it again from the perspective of performance management, and in this case you're actually putting down what the expectations from the employee are by the organization, and again you introduce a conversation where you come in and measure or evaluate what is it that they have achieved against expectations. Of course, when you look at it now from the perspective of talent development, this is where succession planning sits. Talent is purely a definition of your own potential and your ability to be a higher performer. So we look at the value you're putting on the table, how much you carry the vision of the business and organization with you, how much you are productive at teams on the group activities. We also look at you in terms of now the competences, your own personalities, your own behaviors, how you come in and pull influence and positive leadership and behavior, how you can be an agent of change within an organization. So when you look at it, that HR model from the perspective of resourcing, total reward, performance management, employee development, and talent development, you will now have a result or an outcome where you have right employees at the right place, doing the right job, at the right time, at the right cost, and at the right leadership.
Wow.
So at the formal stage, HR is very crucial and critical. But what is it again that has inhibited the actually succession planning, as you had asked about the risks? One of the number one risks, when you look at it now, when you look at succession planning from a HR point of view, HR, we need to go back to our values and ethics. We need to evaluate and review employees' performance and employees' potential from well-set, defined goal and objectives, well-defined expectations, clearly communicated processes and approaches that will be used to evaluate their performances. And of course, when you sit in this conversation, it is always good to pass feedback. But when I sit and evaluate Eric from a perspective of that he doesn't really smile at me, you know, he's not someone who wants to work beyond working hours. You know, he's not someone who really I will use as an errand boy. He does not come from my village. He's not my tribe. you know, as opposed to looking at Eric on what exact value at that high performing stage is he demonstrating. And looking at Eric, how best can we come in and develop Eric further to stand a chance of coming in and taking over those business leadership. So the risk number one is on the people who are driving these processes. And of course, performance evaluation and talent development is a function of both HR and your immediate reports. The team which is seated here, Eric, if they reports to you or they reports to Doreen, the conversation will be, before a conclusion is arrived at, you have had your inputs, she has also had her inputs, etc., etc. So if that input is not relayed truthful, rightfully, and in an honest perspective, what damage are we causing to the organization when it comes to talent development? And this is the same talent we are creating as a pool to come and take over those leadership positions. So the risk that we stand as a result of not having a succession plan in place, every time, Eric, you don't sit to plan, you're obviously planning to fail. There is no any other conversation, you know. So if we really want to see a continuity of that hard work which we have achieved at excellence stage, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 generations, so really we must put in place a mechanism that comes in and safeguards and secures that running of this business from the perspective of now its own future in terms of continuity, and equally now even at a personal perspective in terms of legacy and pride that indeed this is what you started and is ongoing. So there is so much exposure or risk that will come when you fail to have in place how will this particular enterprise or institution or business run. And this conversation, once again, it's not only informal, nor is it in the informal sector. It's a universal discussion looking even at our religious institutions. How much chaos have you witnessed when that immediate proprietor or founder leaves? It is total distraction. And we have really seen empires that have had to kneel and eventually collapse, not because they did not have customers, not because they were not profitable, not because they did not have people of goodwill to come and deliver services, raw materials, etc., etc. But there is the fact that we did not have direction in terms of leadership as to how disputes, as to how the business runs for next level, really exposes that particular business from financial risks, corporate in terms of their own image risks, continuity in terms of it having to sustain its own self, operational risks, now looking at it from the efficiency and the day-to-day running of this business. And majority of them, as much as they will not kneel down and collapse, the struggling begins on the spot, so long as we have not put leadership and direction in place. So we want really to see ourselves continue, we must secure ourselves. If you look at how God again created man, the succession plan in a man is through the family unit. You know, you cannot stand here and talk about first, second, third generation, and you say I'm from the fourth generation. Yet you didn't. You at any given time you have a grandfather, you have a father. Here you are, you have a kid. That is a succession planning. So the basics and roots of humanity are now enshrined within a family unit. But when it comes now to the business, anything that makes money, including farming, agriculture, etc., etc., it equally has to be protected and has to be safeguarded in a structured but professional manner. Yes.
Is this a hard conversation? But a must that have to be had. And let me ask you this: for somebody in the informal sector,
Yes.
for example, they have a pig farm, but their sons have no interest in farming. They want other to do other things in life. What can you tell them about succession management? They're almost giving up on this. Wanaona hii biashara ya nguruwe inaisha na mimi.
You know, right from creation, Eric, we are diversified as human beings. The fact that I'm in entrepreneurship might be a very different version when it comes to my own kids. They might take a very different angle. And we have seen it, even locally. We have people who are big and bold in terms of trade and business, but their own sons and daughters, they don't even want to imagine that they can ever step a foot in there in terms of the day-to-day running. But then, if you look at it now from that perspective that you have brought up, you'd realize the biggest component of any enterprise or any entity or any trade, formal or informal, is a support system that keeps it running.
Okay.
The support system here, one of the critical, of course, is the people. So this person who is a pig farmer has a team. This team at any given time feeds. There are those who take stocks in terms of how much we have sourced, in terms of feedings, in terms of if we have to do vaccination, if we have to sell, etc., etc. So really, if you look at it from that perspective, from within that particular team that you have employed, you need to start identifying who is this person or who is this individual in a team that can continue with this particular business or with this particular entity, whether I'm retired, whether I'm old, or whether I'm no longer interested to run with it and continue delivering results. But then much of it that happens is that we really do not, again, more so in the informal sector, I find an issue of mistrust very common. It's very common and spreads across. The mentality that something is going wrong, so long as I'm not there. Yeah, Eric. You know, it's a difficult conversation because having been brought where we are coming from, we are picking these behaviors even from our parents. And they came in to trust and believe in their workers and the support system way after so many years, when they are about 60, 70 years old. You know, I don't know how much damage that has caused, but indeed there is damage. So you really want to micromanage. You can't trust that your number one diamond star employee will come in and get it right at feeding, at vaccination, at cleaning. You know, you really can't trust them up to that point. You want to really be on the look and on the watch when every other activity is running end to end. And sometimes why really organize corporates and enterprises beats and are way ahead of our informal sector economy, at least they have some processes, they have some procedures, they have some mechanism. So what we need to transfer is that an organized way of running and doing that particular business. So if you look at it now from that pig farmer, one, do they keep records? You know, do they keep every information that is actually running, be it vaccination, be it feeding, be it the number of piglets, you know, do they have forecast in terms of how much feeds they should be buying? Do they understand where they will be selling this particular pigs once they are mature for slaughter? You know, have they do they have a plan as to how big that particular business or that particular farming can grow? So what plans do they have in place to support that particular business in future should it grow? So we really need to evolve because unfortunately technology is not sparing us. And if you really don't have data, you will never have information and insights when it comes to decision making. So there is a need for us to start getting organized. The beauty with Kenya, and the other day you could see the ranking in terms of our quality of education, when it comes to English speaking. I'm not talking about the skills. I'm talking about the English. We are very good in it. That means we went to school. So when it comes now to the basic activities of planning and organizing ourselves and mapping those critical resources which can move us to the next level, it does not really select either formal or informal. But the biggest mileage with the formal sectors, at any given time they have a way of controlling data, they have systems, at least they have an organization structure. Whether there is war, even when the immediate boss or CEO is gone, it might come in temporarily, but within no time, even if it's not organized and structured, there will always be someone whom they'll say, this person can come in and run the business. But then, does succession planning mean it is only horizontal? No, it's horizontal and vertical. We are in the same level with Felix. If I exit, let's say, supply chain, and he's in business development, he should come in and take over from me because he has interacted and he has understood, and in the course of time he has been developed and synchronized to understand and get to value and appreciate that particular business, not only at that moment but even in future. So it means Felix can come in and replace me within the same level, and he can equally grow upward and take over the helms of the CEO or the MD. So it's not a factor of saying this is a junior employee, they cannot take over senior roles. No, not at all. It's vertical and horizontal. You understand?
Okay.
So it's all about how we plan and structure this conversation. It's not very famous because again, from where we are coming from, we have not really been taught to hand over or let it be also taken by someone else who can come in with new ideas, new thinking, and add more value to it. Yes.
Wow. It's an amazing conversation.
Thank you.
We've seen people that have successfully done it. You mentioned the Asian community.
Yes.
The Jewish community is also good at this. The Indian community is also good at this. And
Yes.
they have these businesses that go beyond time and also spreads to so many areas
Yes.
across the continent.
Yes.
Where do organizations start? Where can organizations start in succession planning?
Thank you. So if you look at it from the premise of family business, between 0 to 13 years, Eric, you can impact the mindset of your child. At that point, they will pick anything. They are under your control. They're under your control. You will shout, yeah, hi Sam, come. They'll come running very fast.
Sam comes running.
Yes, it's your orders that run the show. 0 to 13 years. Okay. So if you look at it now from is an interesting topic. So really, so if you look at it now from a family unit, the only room you have to ordain a covenant of mind in your own child that we have a business as a family. Okay, so the only time you can ordain a covenant is that it's you as a family and him or her that we have a running business, and this business started way during our father's time, and it has to come all the way to your fourth generation in terms of continuity is when they are 0 to 13 years. Okay? So if you look at the Jewish Asia, as you have rightly stated it, these kids from a very tender age, they will always accompany their mothers and fathers to their workplaces. And they will not only accompany them, but they will also have a specific responsibility or role to execute on a day-to-day basis. And when you look at it now from a formal perspective, when we spoke about the total reward in the HR model within succession planning, we brought in the total reward conversation. For this particular kid, the total rewards comes in when he or she is well informed that for you to buy a bicycle, these are some of the responsibilities that you will execute here in our workstation. Wow. It could be cleaning, you know, it could be passing stocks on goods to buyers, it could be arranging files, it could be serializing documents dependent with the age, considering how fast they are growing today. Okay? And that in the world of today is not happening manually. These kids, in terms of computer literacy and their ability to cloud compute, they are way ahead of us. So all this is happening through a system. That's why I said succession planning is systematic. So they are already structured in mind that Monday I will go in there and it's my day to arrange all files in accordance to the sales that went out last week. So they will get into a sales journal and start mapping all activities that took place in that particular week. So that way they have visibility when it comes to sales, when it comes to the number of transactions, interacting with customers, and they will also appreciate that wealth has to be created. They are going through a process of really coming home at the end of the day, very tired and exhausted, considering they have not been seated. They have not been mounted on the screens of TVs in watching games, cartoons, etc., etc. So at that age, that kid is in a position to define to you, my father or mother runs a matatu business. The driver starts working at 4 a.m. From between 4 a.m. up to around 11 a.m. Whatever has been fetched in terms of collections goes to the payments of the bank loans, paying the fuel that was consumed yesterday. Then from that moment onward, they works for profits, their salary, the repair and maintenance, etc., etc. They already informed, and they have that information, and that knowledge is consistently being created in them. Remember, this happens when they are off school holidays. So more often when you're coming to work or moving around, you will come across this particular community with their kids in their vehicles riding to work very early, sometimes even 7 a.m. And you are like, hey, my kid is, if this child was mine, he or she should be sleeping. I think this is not fair. It's not human rights when you have to push your kid to wake up this early. So when you look at it now from an informal perspective, that is how that conversation needs to be driven. Any kid who is now 14 years and above, they're in discovery moment. They are trying to develop, to design and develop and shape their own destiny, how they know best. So it is, you're no longer a priority. You're not a priority. You'll even call them for assignments. They'll tell you, you are number 2 or number 3 in my queue because I have 1, 2, 3 to run. So this is exactly how they are structured in terms of how they operate. That child will likely come back to you at the age of 21 years, when now they have had like a whooping 8 years to self-discover, to design themselves, then to develop themselves in terms of what they want to be. Remember, we spoke about succession planning. In talent, we are developing. In employee, we are developing. In resourcing, we are trying to evaluate what your competencies, etc., etc. So a lot of discovery, a lot of designing, a lot of development. So then if you look at it now from the formal perspective, that talent, if he or she is not identified, at the resourcing or recruitment stage, and you might stand a chance to also come in maybe at employee development stage to pick them if you are lucky. That conversation, Eric, starts from that onboarding moment, which is now a bigger process when it comes now to when you come in as an organization internally and realize there is a need for us to create a certain position. Remember, we said at an organization level, even succession planning is a need. There has to be need. It has to be demonstrated. So this company has realized we need to feel there is need for us to create a certain position. That position will come with its roles and responsibilities. Then of course now it will push you to decide whether to source for that particular role. In terms of now feeling for the candidate. Is it internal? Is it external? So at that discussion point, when you are now engaging in an interview process, you pick the applicants either internally or externally from a perspective of competence. And this is purely now their skill sets, their knowledge, and the experiences they have. Then you move forward and look at it now from a perspective of their own potential and behavior. So when we talk about, when you define talent development, you are aligning high performance with high potential. High performance is that value you contribute in this particular in this particular enterprise, either as a result of impact or value in terms of return on investment or profitability. And then when you look at it now from a perspective of potential, I see Eric in terms of his own competences, and I also see Eric in terms of his own behaviors, in terms of his own personality, in terms of his mindset, how he's very open to learning. So it doesn't happen. It does not happen by the virtue of the fact that you are rewarding these people. You will not pick talent at that stage. Rewarding is what me and you, Eric, agreed. If I'm on retainer and commission, and when I exceed my own targets, there are also a compensation attached to it. That's an agreed package. Okay. If it's at the performance evaluation stage, I know what the expectations are. They have been communicated to me. So the conversation between me and you is to evaluate where do I stand when you look at it now from the perspective of expectations against actuals. At the employee development stage, it's the learning and development, is a training and development that takes place to upskill this particular employee. So it does not really come in and speak to succession. But when you look at it from the talent development stage, it speaks to resourcing, where we started. But where are we going wrong? As I had said, quality of that process between a HR and their supervisor. Number two, at the resourcing stage, we are really very much, we have now gotten to an appetite of recruiting for low skills, but abundance in learning and development. So Eric will come before a panelist. He has his own folder with over 30 certificates, because every time Eric was told he is underperforming, the best he will do is to run very fast and ask Felix to recommend to him what courses can make me upskill or even now become more better in terms of performance. So you're very well packaged when it comes to papers, but when it comes to your own skill sets, low.
They are still low.
They are still low. So when you bring in that particular resource in an organization, what do you expect? It's low performance. Low performance. below expectations. Yes. Yes.
Wow. Amazing. Such a powerful conversation here.
Yes.
And Simon Kamau with Pro Limited can help you in succession planning.
Oh, yes.
What is your phone number, even as you give us a closing shot on
my phone number is 0725 090 430.
Again?
0725 090 430.
How do you offer this as a package?
it's good to note that OptiPro Limited will obviously come in and engage from a platform of partnership. So there is a lot of engagements to just audit, understand your business, and of course with the outcomes, we're in a position to engage on how we can proceed forward. So it's not like we come in and hit you with an invoice. We really first have to understand where your business stand from the perspective of it at continuity and on leadership.
Wow.
Yes.
It's the same as you said last time with the research.
Yes.
Thank you so much for honoring our invitation and
Eric.
coming and telling us. There's a key point takeaway there: 0 to 13.
Yes.
If you have a family business, 0 to 13 is the window you have.
I pity hapo. I pity hapo. Ni ukweli.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
That brings us to the end of our show today. Why businesses are failing in Africa, succession planning.